Hello, Whovians, and welcome to the brand new interview over on the Weird Side of the channel you are watching currently. Now, you're probably thinking, you're at it again. Well, yes, I am at it again. I'm a very busy person, and you will also notice the audio quality is different if you haven't spotted it already. In the previous interview, I've got a brand new microphone, so I sound crispier and less like a dancing robot. Now, today, I'm joined by someone very special. He hosts one of the greatest podcasts. I say one because there's a list of greatest podcasts. There's 10, and he's in the top 10. He hosts the amazing Sitcom Geeks podcast. It's David Cohen.
Hello, hi. I co-host it, you should say, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Co-host with James Carey. I've got a new microphone as well, actually. So,
Ooh.
look, there we go.
Oh.
Very nice.
Oh, yes.
Yes. So
Now,
I'm very excited about that, and very happy to be with you, Tom, as well.
Thank you. Now, for people that might have not heard of the Sitcom podcast, and I'm quite offended if you haven't heard it, would you be able to explain to them what it is?
Yes, I mean it's actually aimed at a very sort of niche, very narrow market, really. It's aimed at people who want to be comedy writers. And I mean, although we call ourselves sitcom geeks and we talk mostly about sitcom, because most of us grew up loving sitcom and that's what we wanted to do. But we talk about the whole range of possibilities of things to write for. But mainly we talk about how to write sitcoms.
Yeah, and you do a very good job at it because you can.
Thank you.
What I love to do is listen to it in order. So then because you've chaptered it in different ways, and you've got here's how you pilot it, and then here's now a question that a lot of people probably ask you is, what's your favorite sitcom?
Yeah. Oh, now, funnily enough, I haven't been asked that for a while. It varies. I think I grew up with Steptoe and Son, and that will always be in my top five. I can't ever imagine it not being there.
Yeah.
But I love of what's kind of around at the moment. I love Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I think that's wonderful. I adored Frasier. And Absolutely Fabulous. That was another one that really loved. And so I'm kind of picking different ones from different eras, I suppose. Faulty Towers would be my kind of 1970s choice, probably. I'm thinking, what would I choose from the 1980s? I'd have to have a bit of a think for that. Probably Blackadder, I would imagine.
That's a very good one. It's very
Father Ted from the 90s, I think. And then Father Ted. I'd have a Father Ted Fab kind of standoff. I think, really.
Yeah, because they're both really good. But have you heard that Paramount Plus, which is coming to the UK next year on Sky, is doing a revival series of Frasier?
And not only had I heard it, I stopped my day to watch an interview on some American chat show with Kelsey Grammer, who was plugging some new film that he's doing or something, and he talked about it being, everybody wants to do it, and we're just trying to get everybody back. I mean, of course, John Mahoney's died a few years ago, so obviously the situation of not having the dad there is. I mean, that's a fairly crucial thing. I'd be interested to know how they kind of get around that. They used to do a thing in American sitcoms where if an actor died, they just replaced them with a different actor and hoped that nobody noticed. And most of the time, nobody did. But I think a character as iconic as Martin would be hard to replace. Really, I think.
Yeah, and talking about sitcoms that replace characters now with Miranda, which is a hot topic as of late, has had its American remake, which, in my opinion, didn't go down very well. And what was your thoughts on the German version called Ruby, which is about practically the same as the UK version. Have you heard much about the German version?
I haven't. I'm not. We James, my co-host, actually wrote for the first two series of Miranda,
Yeah,
and I wrote for about seven series of Not Going Out, and
yeah,
Miranda Hart was in so about three of those series as the cleaner. Um, so in that sense, that's as near as I've got to writing for Miranda. But I I, we interviewed. Oh, so you can hear it now. Our current episode of Sitcom Geeks
yeah.
is an interview with a man called John Vorhaus, who
Mm,
is an American sitcom writer. He wrote for a show called Married with Children,
yeah,
but he's also written some really good books about how to write comedy. And we talk a little bit about why or how shows translate and whether they work or not when
yeah,
they go to America. And I think probably The Office is always kind of referred to as the sort of as the benchmark,
mm,
the show that worked, and therefore everything else should work. But or everything else should try following
yeah,
the Office model. Um, but I'm not sure. I don't know. Miranda feels such a kind of Miranda-based show. Uh, I mean, yes, The Office was Ricky Gervais, but it was much more than that. I think he was David Brent was the sort of
yeah,
heart of it, beating heart. But I think people forget the kind of the strong narrative elements and other oddities and things that Stephen Merchant brought to The Office.
yeah.
And then when it went to America, it was just a completely different show, really. I
Yeah.
mean, you really couldn't uh, put the two together, I would say.
Mm. And so going on to yourself writing, what inspired you to become a sitcom writer or a writer in general?
Uh, well, I think I always knew that I wanted to be a writer from a very young age. I mean, really young. I don't know, 5 years old or something. I don't know how or why. I don't know if I knew what a writer was. I just thought, I like writing. I enjoyed the physical thing of putting words on pages on paper. Um, and then I got very kind of distracted, spending.
Yeah,
I moved. I became a journalist because I thought, oh, that's how you get into writing comedy. And then I moved to London and got distracted by stand up and just spent 10 years being a stand up. And I think partly because it's partly a kind of lazy thing, really. I could I turned up in London in a perfect time for stand up. All the first generation, the Rick Mail, the Lexi Sale, all that
yeah,
crowd were big TV stars, and they'd left this big void of the London comedy circuit in the
mm,
1980s, and people like myself and Jeremy Hardy and John Sparks and these people, we turned up in London, and there was like more gigs than there were people to do them.
mm,
So I could earn as much from doing like 3 20-minute gigs in a weekend in London as the many hours it took me to write jokes for Radio 4 satire shows.
yeah,
And I kind of, although I did carry on doing the Radio 4 stuff, but the stand up was just, it just was fun, and it was relatively straightforward, and it led to doing many years of performing in Edinburgh and all those things. And so, that became a very interesting side career, but it did kind of distract me from writing. And then after about 10 years of stand up, I was starting to get a little bit bored with it. Um, and I wasn't progressing really. And so I kind of moved
yeah,
sideways, I would say, really. But it was, I sort of had to relearn to be a sitcom writer because I was in my 30s by now. And I kind of, my writing was very much me doing jokes for my persona on
yeah,
stage. And so So I had to work. So it was like starting from scratch, really, being a sitcom writer in my mid-30s. But
Yeah,
it's been a passion ever since, really.
yeah. And what was the first sitcom you ever wrote for?
Um, the first, well, what happened was I got commissioned. I wrote several pilots and things, and in the early 1990s, nothing got made at all. Um, the first thing that I got made was a show of my own show, which went out on Radio 4, which was a sort of part sitcom, part autobiography. That was in about 1999. That was sort of 2000, and from then I started to write. I was asked to write for My Family, so that was really the first
Yeah,
sitcom that I on TV that I wrote for, and then I wrote for various BBC One sitcoms. I wrote a show called Life of Riley by Georgia Pritchett, who writes for Succession, among
yeah.
other things. Great comedy writer, and then Not Going Out. So those were my sort of main sitcoms
Mm.
that I wrote for.
Yeah, and when you wrote for My Family and then when you watched it back, did you feel like proud to see your words being turned into words on screen?
Yeah, it was a really it was an interesting kind of journey, I suppose. I turned up to the recordings for the sitcom, and I was more nervous as a writer than I'd ever been as a performer. Um, and there is a sense, when you're one step removed, it's not you saying the lines and someone else is saying them. There's always that kind of nerve wracking feeling.
Mm.
Um, it was it was a difficult experience as well, My Family, because it was the first sitcom that I'd been asked to write for, and it was I was a little bit out of my depth. Uh, really, I wouldn't say I was out of my depth as a writer, but I was. The show was the most popular show on TV
Yeah,
when I was asked to write for it, and in between me being asked to write for it and it going out, uh, Chris Marshall, who was the sort of most popular aspect of the show, left, and so they had this sort of PR disaster. Really, was he left, and Fred Barron, who was the guy who uh, got me to be one of the writers,
yeah,
he left as well. He set up the whole show. He was the showrunner. He was in charge of everything. He left. Chris Marshall left, and so I, I didn't really have anyone there. The show was already kind of going to get a kicking because it was not going to be as popular without
yeah,
Chris Marshall, and I didn't have anyone there to advocate for me. So, and it was my first sort of proper TV sitcom
yeah,
writing job, and I was really hopelessly adrift, and I wasn't. Nobody was. Everybody was too busy. There was the fallout of Chris Marshall not being in the show and Fred Barron not doing it was so great. Everybody was just so busy firefighting.
mm.
Nobody really noticed that I was having a kind of midlife crisis. Wondering what am I doing? I'm writing for the most popular sitcom, and nobody's talking to me. So. So that was so it was a bit of a fraught
Yeah,
experience, but the not going out was a much nicer one, because that wasn't even really being asked to write scripts. That was just being asked to write more jokes for it,
yeah,
and so the pressure's off really.
mm.
And then going to recording and just watching Lee being
Well,
just the most brilliant
yeah,
person, the
yeah.
most excellent. It's just a lovely experience from start to finish. That one.
Yeah, and he's a very comical person, and
Mm.
he was very good on series 11 of Taskmaster, where he didn't have much. He just was himself, and he acted like he does on Not Going Out. But where did writing for My Family and Not Going Out lead to you end up creating a popular a phenomenon of podcast?
Yeah, I met. I vaguely knew James. We were both writing a lot for uh, BBC Radio 4 around about the 2000s, the late 90s and the 2000s. I had various sketch shows and things and my own sitcom that I was doing on Radio 4, and he'd written a show called Think the Unthinkable, which was very successful on Radio 4. So we kind of moved in the same circles, and then he also got asked to write for My Family at the same time as I did. So, but he wasn't like there all the time. He was only there for sort of a week or so. But we kind of we caught up in that week, and we got on very well. And over the next few years, uh, uh, it turned out we were both very much kind of sitcom nerds, and James would put on events just for the hell of it. At the BBC Radio, he'd say, "Oh, we're going to do a screening of Father Ted tonight. If anyone wants to come and just chat about Father Ted."
Who wouldn't?
Yeah, exactly. And it was like, oh God, yeah, and so that was fun. And I realised I didn't quite realise it until I was sort of talking with James. And I realised that I sort of knew a little bit more about the writing process than I understood, and that I was actually because My Family was such a traumatic experience. Really, it sort of forced me to go all the way back to the basics and say, okay, I can't. I'm not a terrible. It's not me. It's just, I'm not. I know I'm a good writer, but something went terribly wrong on the My Family experience. I need to stop and think. And I started to think, and I started to read up a bit about and understand about the process of writing. And James, coming from a different angle, was also very knowledgeable and was kind of aware of what he was doing as he was writing. So over that period, for about sort of 7 or 8 years, really, we did things. And in fact, I started a podcast with the British Comedy Guide. A few years before Sitcom Geeks. It was called something like "What are you laughing at?" or something, and it was sporadic. It was basically me interviewing my mates from stand-up days, and people that I knew, like Mark Thomas or Gina Yashere, and people, and getting them to just and talk about comedy and things. And it didn't really. It wasn't organized. But then James asked me after we'd done a few of these, and he said, look, I'm going to do this thing, Sitcom Geeks. Will you co-host it with me? And I said, yeah, sure. And this was what I know, 2015. I think podcasts were they were pretty much a thing by that point, but obviously not to the extent that they are now. So yeah, that's so we did this fortnightly sitcom, and we loved doing it, and people started listening, and we set it up as a Patreon, and so now we don't earn a huge amount of money from it, but it's something that we love doing, and we get a lot of good feedback from it. And in fact, I wouldn't be here talking to you today, Tom, if it wasn't for Sitcom Geek. So for that alone, I think
but
it was worth it.
Yeah. But how did the British Comedy Guide get involved? Because it seemed like they're a big part within distribution of the podcast itself. Did they reach out to you and say, we want to work with your podcast?
What happened was I contacted them a long time, and again, this is all kind of this is all after My Family, and I'm trying to think what I was doing in that period in sort of 2000, between 2000 and 2006. So I was sort of doing various bits of comedy writing, and I was just quite interested in the British Comedy Guide, which was at that time around 2008 when I first got in touch with them. It was a very lively. They had a really big, lively forum going on, and I could see, and I just occasionally tapped into this forum, and it was just people were just writing from a position of complete ignorance, really, and they were kind of trying to do things and suggesting things, and people would make it saying, "Oh, if you want to write a sitcom, you need to do this, this," and I just think, "Oh
Yeah.
no, no, don't put that. That's the opposite of what you need to." So I sort of started dipping a toe in with them and got to
Yeah.
know these guys very well, and it's the same two guys, and they've been running it since God knows
Wow.
2007. I mean, they are phenomenal, really. The
Yeah.
site is incredible. It's
It
just,
is. It's out of this world.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, what if you've got any question at all about comedy, and nothing to do with writing, wanting to write it or anything? If you just want to know, "Oh, who was that bloke who was in that sitcom that I really liked," and that's all you know,
Yeah.
you can probably find the answer from about 5 clicks on BCG, British Comedy Guide.
Yeah. I just love the site, and since I started doing the interviews, and I created my own comedy club YouTube channel, and I did a semi improvised sitcom, and work on projects. They've been added it to the website, and I got the pro version because of the fact that I had a profile on the website and been to some of the webinars, and it is a really interesting website, and the daily emails, and the these and that, and you learn, oh, this film that was brilliant is now available on Blu-ray, and that's because of the website. Or you find out about a remake that's going to happen because of the website, and they get first-hand information, it seems like, because the moment the news is out, they've already covered it like seconds before the Daily Mail, so they're faster than the Daily Mail. But from the website, it also tells you what sitcoms are in development or upcoming. So, what's your favorite, or what sitcom are you excited for that's upcoming in the future?
Oh, that's yeah. I'm not sure. I haven't. I mean, I do look at that. I always enjoy
Mm.
seeing what's in development. Uh, yeah, I kind of I'm not. I mean, tend to be a little bit disappointed with the things that are coming through, and maybe it's. I think maybe because I'm just I'm that much older now,
Yeah.
and I don't. It's not really aimed at me.
Mm.
A lot of what the comedy is, and I completely understand that. That's fine. It's sort of the BBC and Channel 4, who are the main people who make comedy. They're looking to get the 20 to 30 age group demographic or whatever. That's the kind of age people they're looking at. Oh, actually, we haven't even mentioned Horrible Histories yet, which that's been the main show
Yeah.
I've been writing for the last sort of 10, 12 years,
Wow.
and that kind of actually writing for kids has been
Yeah.
a real sort of eye opener for me as well. So um, but that's so I kind of quite I'm quite interested in what's showing on kids TV, just because I think it's easily as good as
Yeah.
most of the stuff that's on so-called adult television.
Yeah, and I've noticed that as well. So there's a few sitcoms on there that were on when I was young enough to still watch it, and then never ended. Just like kept on going. So awkward, and still so awkward.
Yeah.
Is one of the best children's sitcoms. And then Horrible Histories, series 1 to 5, I think is where it was really good. But what have you seen Ghosts? What's your opinion on Ghosts?
Yeah, I love Ghosts. I love Ghosts. I mean, it was such a writing songs for those guys was, it was particularly Jim Howick. He's a brilliant singer. And Matt also did some, some of my favorite songs from that show were that were done by Matt, but the two of them, and Martha as well were,
Yeah,
but the group of them were great. And actually, that first 5 series was a real kind of it was a real thrill, and I'm love the fact that Ghosts, they've kind of they've developed so much as a group.
Yeah.
Um, from basically performing in a sketch show, and writing. They didn't, they wrote quite a lot of it, but it
Mm.
was also, you know, written by a lot of other people. But going from that to Yonderland and then to Ghosts,
Yeah.
uh, I think Ghosts is. I think to answer your question, because your last question, what am I looking forward to? I think it's actually just come out now, the
Yeah.
third series of Ghosts. So
It has.
actually, yeah,
Yeah.
I think we are going to start watching it. It's next on our list of things to watch. So actually, tonight I shall be watching the first episode of the new series of Ghosts.
Yeah. I think series three, without spoiling it for you, I think series three has got to be up there with like one of the best. I think series three is better than the last series of Yonderland and better than Bill.
Mm.
I think
Yeah,
Ghosts is better than Bill because Bill
because
was trying to capture what Horrible Histories was, but I think
without my songs,
yeah, but
how dare
I
they?
but I feel like Ghosts just has got a wide fan base, has become so popular that people that never watched Horrible Histories are now getting into this, and
Yeah.
then and it's a phenomenon overnight, and I think it's like more talked about than Yonderland ever was. And did you ever watch Yonderland?
I never saw. I didn't have Sky at the time, so so I only ever caught like clips of it,
Mm.
and I never quite. Everybody said, "Oh yeah, I like Yonderland" and things, but I never quite got anyone saying you must watch Yonderland. I still haven't seen Yonderland. I'm sure it's on Netflix or something. I should
It's
catch
on
up with it.
BBC iPlayer because CBC
Oh
air it
right.
every other week.
Oh, okay. Oh, well, in that case, I will watch it on iPlayer.
Yeah,
Yeah, but I never saw Yonderland, so but I knew what it was about, and I knew about it, and it sounded, and I know, and James was a big fan of that as well. So,
yeah,
um, but yeah, I'm a big fan of all of them. Really, I think they're
yeah.
great. They're a great bunch.
Mm, yeah,
Um,
and what's really interesting, and I don't know how they're because Monty Python are called Monty Python, and you know the group when you mention the names, but the Horrible Histories lot, I don't know whether it was named because of the fans or anything, but they're called the Six Idiots, which is quite odd in itself because none of them are idiots. Because it's do you know why they're called the Six Idiots?
I don't. I mean, the thing is, the Monty Python crowd all got together. I think they were they all knew each other. I think when they
Yeah,
were students, and then they all kind of did worked on different shows in sort of light entertainment and radio in the late 1960s.
mm,
Um, so by the time they came together to be Monty Python, they were they were pretty close. They were a pretty close unit, really. They were, I mean, I think Palin and Jones worked a lot together. Cleese and Chapman had worked together mainly as writers,
yeah,
actually. I think, um, and but so they kind of were already a unit, whereas the Horrible Histories team was brought together
yeah,
by Caroline, the producer. So they all met really
yeah.
on series one of Horrible Histories,
Mm,
and that was how their story began really.
mm,
And so um, they go off and they do other things. Matt did the thing with James Corden, The Wrong Man's, and because Simon Farnaby's always kind of had his sort of odd oddball career,
yeah,
and Martha has always done loads of other stuff. So they've all worked separately, but I
mm,
think they did start, I think, around Yonderland to sort of try and kind of package themselves as a new Monty Python,
Yeah.
but calling themselves the Six Idiots. I mean, anyone who's in comedy, if you want to do comedy, you have to be prepared to look like a complete idiot.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
you know,
Because there was an interview that was on this morning. I think they were advertising series 4 or 3 of Horrible Histories, and Hollow Willoughby named them the new Monty Pythons, which is rather
oh,
interesting because Hollow Willoughby didn't seem like the type of person to have seen Monty Python, but she seemed like she watches other
mm,
entertainment. It's like a reality TV. She seems like a massive reality TV fan rather than a comedy fan. Um, and so going on to sitcoms, which we're on about, but going on to
mm.
more of a working on sitcom type thing. What 3 scenarios wouldn't work as a sitcom?
Do you mean what idea for a sitcom
Yeah,
would
like
you?
what settings don't work? Because you
Yeah,
mentioned in one of the episodes about a bank, working in a bank wouldn't work as a sitcom.
yeah. I wouldn't want to force this and say there is no setting that there is a setting. There are a number of settings that will never work,
Mm.
and because you can be surprised about it. And James sort of talked about his thing is he said, "Why have you never seen a sitcom set in a betting shop?"
Yeah,
And he talked about it. We've talked about it, and we sort of
yeah.
thought, well, yeah, you can sort of imagine why it might not work.
Mm.
Banks, um, I don't know. I mean, a bank feels like a place where I suppose partly work has changed now. Banks are different now,
Yeah.
but I think you still have 3 or 4 people in a bank who work there who probably don't want to be there,
Yeah.
who have to spend their lives being nice to people who are rude to them, and
Yeah.
they're never going to kind of progress, and
Mm.
there's always going to be someone one step above them who's going to make their life misery.
Yeah.
So in many ways it's sort of I sort of think, well, maybe you could set a sitcom in a bank. I mean, there are a number of recurring ideas, things that I do see a lot of that aren't quite right,
Yeah.
but people write them because they have been done before. So
Yeah.
two 20-something blokes sharing a flat. It's tried and tested sitcom. But
Yeah.
when I see a new script from someone, a script from a new writer, and it's 2 blokes set in a flat, I think, okay, so how is this going to be
Different.
different from Peep Show?
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10 it isn't.
Yeah.
So that's you know um, then again, I might see an incredibly original idea for something, but then it feels like, oh, this is so original, it hasn't really, I don't really know, it doesn't feel grounded
Yeah.
in the sort of dull tedium of sitcom,
Yeah.
the kind of the sort of misery of the relationships where people never learn from their mistakes.
Yeah. And with you were saying before about a betting shop, which reminded me about something that with when you watch old sitcoms that are on Netflix and then are also on somewhere else. So Still Game is a classic Scottish sitcom, and there's in series 1 on the Netflix version, there was an episode where they're in a betting shop betting on some horses. And what Netflix have done, because you can watch the same episode on BBC iPlayer, and Netflix have cut each part of it every time it shows the horses galloping, it cuts that away. So half the jokes, the main bit of the jokes, are all cut out in the Netflix version, and the BBC version have kept it as it is. But the Netflix have got the episode in the wrong order anyway because they just felt like putting it in the wrong order. Do you know why that happens?
Um, I don't. I love Still Game. I think it's a fantastic sitcom. and in fact, I really enjoyed. I remember a show the pre the precursor to it was a
Yeah,
sketch show called Chewing the Fat,
yeah, that
and
was
those
hilarious.
and those characters, a lot of those characters began their lives
Yeah,
in Chewing the Fat, and still game. It's a great show, but I think I don't understand that, but I think Netflix, when Netflix take a show,
mm,
they they are showing it to the world. So um, there are probably some, I don't know, some weird kind of compliance rules or something that they have to follow.
yeah,
If this show is going to be shown, the same show is going to be shown across America and Australia and Singapore and Brazil or whatever.
yeah,
Somebody very strongly says, uh, if you have shots of horses running in a horse race, you can't show that.
yeah,
So I don't know. So I'm totally speculating on this, but
yeah,
it does. I think that's where that will have come from. I haven't. I'm trying to think because I tend to watch on Netflix. A lot of the stuff that I see on Netflix is stuff that's not available elsewhere. So I'm not really watching old
yeah,
shows. So
yeah.
the last show that I watched from Netflix was the Kaminsky Method, which
Oh
is
yeah.
which is a great show for old fogies like me. Uh,
Um,
but
yeah, and so with sitcoms and how sitcoms have developed from having a studio audience and now a studio audience, and then moving forward to where sitcoms are now British and American, because it'd be different elsewhere, and we're more likely to know more about British and American. But what how did why did Like Lads work so well enough for it to then continue? Do you know like why that was so popular to then become its spin-off sequel series, whatever happened to the Like Lads? Do you know how that worked?
well, I would say partly the answer to that is the writers. Um, Dick Clement and Ian Lafrene. We're talking at the start about my favourite '70s sitcom, Faulty Towers, but I mean that was a sort of golden era of sitcom, and Porridge and Whatever Happened to the Likely Lads, uh, and the Likely Lads, and then of course after all that, I'll feed his own pet. Clement and Lafrene are just two brilliant comedy
Yeah,
writers. I I've written a bit about that, and in the sense that the Likely Lads. I mean, I remember I was very young when it came out. I was
mm,
about 7 or 8, but I do remember it. But it kind of captured um, the mood. I think that of that kind of small window in the mid 1960s, late
mm,
60s, where working class culture was a cause for celebration in this country, and I've always felt that Bob and Terry, the main characters,
mm.
kind of mirrored Paul McCartney and John Lennon, who were
Yeah,
at the height of the Beatles. But then when you get to Whatever Happened to the Likely Lads, which is in the early '70s, that also absolutely beautifully captured the whatever happened to the '60s really was what it was saying, and that working class culture, and particularly Newcastle where it was set,
yeah,
which had a very sort of grubby history of corruption, local politics corruption, and so the kind of the great dream of the '60s and the great joy of that working class culture by the early '70s. You've got the Beatles have split up acrimoniously. Paul's being a vegetarian living on a remote Scottish island, and yeah, still doing great music, but John's being kind of angry and political in New York, and and so and there's kind of in the sense that Bob and Terry mirror that, and Bob bettered himself.
Yeah.
He escaped from that sort of drudgery of working class life, but the 70s suburbia was a different prison, really. uh,
Yeah.
and I think it just I use the word prison knowing full well that the next show they did was Porridge, which was set in prison. So I think that there's you know Clement and Lafreniere just beautifully captured all of that, and they write great jokes and they
Yeah.
write great characters.
Mm. Yeah, and now coming forward to the modern era where the royal family has happened and sitcoms have stopped being audience reliant, and the odd one is still made with audiences like Not Going Out and Upstart Crow, and then how why does Brooklyn Nine-Nine translate so well around the world, because fans are watching this from around the world when for us that type of environment isn't the same in the UK than it is over there. Why is that so widely popular?
Again, I'm wary of saying this is how you make a successful show. This is a hit. This is that. Um, I can only talk about things that Why do I like them? I mean, why do I think that show's successful? I think it creates a family. We all like family sitcoms. We all like to watch families. Um, but that's a family that you'd like that to be your family. I think you'd like to be there. I think that's my feeling.
Yeah,
There's something about all of those characters, uh, A, as individuals, and B, together. That's also the fact is that whatever your views on the police are, they are the kind of they're the good guys
yeah,
fighting the bad guys,
yeah,
and they're just having a hell of a great time
yeah.
in the process. And you just think, you just kind of want to be around them. I
Mm.
think.
Yeah. And then so for with remakes is something that's interesting, but it's what's interesting, not just British shows being transferred to American shows and transferred to so on, like the British program Uncle that started on Channel 4 that went to BBC Three. It's getting a South Korean remake, which is going to be interesting. But what why do the British like remaking like American and French shows because and other shows, because they're currently going to air later this year the UK remake of the French Netflix original,
Right.
Call My Agent, and
Yeah.
then we're getting the German show Crime Scene Cleaner as a British remake. Well, why does that happen? It doesn't happen as often in the UK, but why does that happen?
It happens mainly because if something is successful somewhere, somebody sees that and they go, "Oh, that has already worked.
Mm,
It's worked somewhere else. Therefore, uh, it's already it starts from a point, an advantageous point, and it's why so many movies are adapted from books
yeah,
because a book is a successful. If a book is successful and lots of people have read it, then it's got something going for it.
mm,
So you already have the built-in fact if a book sold 1 million copies worldwide, so
mm,
you've already got 1 million
yeah,
potential audience of 1 million who'll go, "Oh, I like that book. I might go and see it." So you've already got 1 million people who are interested, who are curious maybe
yeah.
about this thing being a film.
Mm.
Um, and then, but you've also got, well, why was it successful? And in a sense, this is what you and I've been talking about a lot. Why is something successful? I mean, nobody knows really. You
Yeah,
never really know why something is a success. You just know, oh well, it was a success.
yeah,
What what bits of it that were successful can I
yeah,
have some more of, please? Um, I mean, we never dreamed with horrible histories that it would be. the show, the success that it was.
Yeah,
No one had any idea, but you never have any idea. I have worked on other shows
yeah,
over the years where people have thought, yeah, this is amazing. This is going to kill. This is going to be
yeah,
the show of all shows.
yeah,
And, you know, it
yeah,
happens. Poof, that's
yeah.
it.
But with horrible histories, what's different with that to all the others is horrible histories is one of those where it's not just hilarious, funny, and entertaining. Series 1 to 5. I can't say much for series 6 onwards because I stopped watching after series 5. But it's
Mhm.
really funny and educational. So I'm on a lot of horrible history Facebook groups and all that, and a lot of them are all like really thankful for the show because a lot of people now do really well in 8 GCSEs because of horrible history, because of the rewatch value of how it's still relevant now and it's still factually correct, and you learn more from horrible histories than you would do in a normal English class. So for when I was in high school, a lot of the time when you walk past history classes and whatever, they're always watching a sketch from horrible histories because it's an entertaining way to engage the children and to say to them, this is one way of learning. Some people learn more like this rather than reading a historical textbook. And why do you think that works so well, being a mix between comedy and factual?
Um, yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, I thought about it a lot because, obviously it was a very important uh, brief that we got, before the show existed, and there had been attempt. The books were already out there. The books were already a big success. Terry Deary's books, So there's another example. The TV show was an adaptation of the books, but it took it further. So Caroline, the producer, really, it was her vision, I would say. So she basically took Terry Deary's books, and for her, this you talked about Monty Python, and we mentioned Blackadder. So she thought, I want to bring the comic sense of Blackadder and Monty Python to these Terry Deary books,
Yeah,
and how that's how it kind of came about. And so it kind of already, before you start, it's already looking a little bit like Monty
yeah,
Python. So that's a good. It's already a hugely successful book series, and it's looking a bit like Monty Python. But when we were writing it, um, and this and I, I think I would give a lot of credit to Greg Jenner, who was the sort of main researcher on horrible
yeah,
histories, and he was very he, my scripts weren't just read by comedy people. Greg would read my songs, and if there was something, you were never allowed a gratuitous joke. Every
yeah,
joke had to be factually
accurate.
correct.
Yeah,
No, or it had to have been verified by at least two. The fact had to be verified by at least two historians.
yeah,
So, so that attention to detail, I think, was really important.
mm,
That's the first thing I think, was that we were very much, the correctness of the facts
yeah,
comes first, okay, and then it's the songs are the songs and the jokes on the songs. That's all a
yeah,
bonus, but it's got to be factually correct. And the other thing I just think was what Caroline made me do, really,
yeah,
was it was like, you need to communicate this information to, and we were originally told that the age group we were writing for was 8 to 12 years old.
yeah,
As it turned out, kids were watching from 6, and then everybody was watching, adults, everyone else was watching. So,
yeah,
but we were very focused on the age 8 to 12,
mm,
and it was interesting, especially, like, for example, the song about the theory of evolution,
yeah,
um, the Darwin song.
mm,
So I had to understand the theory of evolution, which I kind of vaguely
yeah,
knew, but I'd never actually sat down and studied it.
Mm.
So I had to study the theory of evolution and know it and understand what it meant.
Yeah.
Then
Right.
I
The
had
song.
then I had to be able to communicate it to an 8 to 12-year-old audience,
Yeah.
and then I wrote the song. you
Yeah.
know, so it's sort of all those levels. So I think what it is, the reason to is a long-winded answer because I've never really thought of it like this, but
Yeah.
the success of it goes down to that it isn't just teachers or textbooks that they're learning history from. They're
Yeah.
learning it from comedy writers
Yeah.
who had to do the research first. So all the knowledge is there,
Mm.
and then we put jokes on it. And
Yeah.
just to finish off on what you were saying there as well. I mean, for me, it's been, I would say, all the things I've done in my career, the response that I've heard time and time again, exactly what you're saying. Kids
Yeah.
saying, I used to find history really boring, I hated
Yeah.
it.
Mm.
Now I love it, and it's all down to horrible histories.
Mm.
And that to me is just a kind of, well, whatever else I've done on this earth or whatever else I do, that's always going to be for me
Yeah.
fantastic thing
Yeah.
to have been a part of, really.
Mm. And for me, I do love history, but I never did history for GCSE because I'm not a very examy person. So we always did other stuff. But horrible histories as a franchise, because it's because what I'm going to say, classes as a franchise was really good. So I had down the stairs in my DVD emporium, I'll call it. I have series 1 to 5 as a box set, and it's like it's almost broken down to being barely nothing because it's been watched that many times. But the other thing I love about it, and you can sort of see on and so you can sort of see my horror history box set there of all the books.
Mm.
And then some other books. Oh, my finger's very good at this. Uh, and the audio books as well were really cleverly made as well because they were made with actors in it and made it. It sounds like you watching the show, but with like a little bit of difference, and it's Terry Deary's made into his own. And why does that transfer? Why does the book transform so well into these different mediums?
Well, again, nobody knows, but it just did, and I think what happened. I think there had been various attempts to do it before, and I think there'd been a show on ITV that was a little bit weird and tried to make it into sort of novels, into like a movie or something.
Yeah,
Um, as it's like time travel and all this kind of weird
yeah,
stuff going on. But I think what Caroline managed to do was she kept the essence of the books. The essence she kept what the essence of what Terry's attitude to teaching is. Never trust teachers. They're that he comes from that kind of period when he and I'm a bit younger than him, but we grew up with history as a bunch of facts and
yeah,
dates, and what Terry said, no, it's not, everything is connected. And that from that point on, it sort of didn't really matter, although all the facts generally tend in the first, certainly the first 2 series,
yeah,
came from all those books. um so a lot of what you see in the first 2 series kind of is almost verbatim from the books,
yeah,
but with our added jokes. But they come from a point of view that history is about people, isn't just about kings and queens. It's about real people. It's about the consequences of events and things like that. So it
yeah,
just brought history to life, really, in a way that people hadn't really noticed
yeah.
before.
Mm. And now moving away from the horrible histories for a little bit, to move on to the next topic of conversation is on why is ITV2 why does ITV2 produce more sitcoms than ITV, because ITV released one last year, but ITV2 have hit ones that released ones that have been successful, like Buffering. by Ian Sterling, and that's been really successful. Why do you think that ITV2 has been more successful than ITV in the comedy department?
I suspect, I don't know. I don't know enough about the economics of these things, but I think that there's a sense that comedy works better, and I think this used to be the case with the BBC. Was that, you know, you start your comedy show modestly on BBC Two,
Yeah.
and if you think like something like "Have I Got News for You" began on BBC Two, Little Britain began on BBC Three, you know, and you make more things than it's possible to succeed, but then one thing succeeds and it moves to BBC One,
Mm.
and that's how, you know, that's how they kind of that's how shows become bigger. And so I think that's kind of what they're probably aiming for with ITV, is to bring across crossover hits to ITV One. But the fact is they make so hardly little any comedy at all, really. So it's not really,
Yeah.
it's not the impact isn't so great, really.
Mm. Yeah, because I see a lot of ITV2 comedy programs, and I feel like they're really good, but they're not going to be as successful because ITV2 is more of a reality channel. From what I can see, it shows a lot of like really not very good reality TV shows that become really popular, and I feel like BBC Three and BBC as a whole and Channel 4 run comedy a lot better. So Channel 4 has got a hit after hit after hit in recent years. So Ashling Bing's sitcom This Way Up has been
Mm,
a hit, and sitcoms and what I think that the TV need to do more of, and the BBC iPlayer have been doing a lot of it recently, is air more pilots. Pilot episodes need to be aired more because the BBC have been airing a lot of pilots, but they've never been made to series. So
mm,
Beep, which is a BBC Scotland pilot that aired last year about a family that has the dad and the husband in a coma and about a
mm,
coma ward, it was hilarious. But I don't think
mm.
would make it to series because the BBC love a good pilot, but then don't make these into series. And do you think that pilots that were never aired and old pilots like the Blackadder pilot and old pilots should be aired on TV now or put on streaming?
Yeah, I think they should. I mean, my general answer to that is that they should make more comedy, and you know, I'm always going to say that, and but they say our comedy is too expensive to make, you know, and especially audience sitcom. That's why you don't get so much audience sitcom anymore. They're just too expensive, and I the as far as I could see, the more you make, the more chance you've got of having a hit. And so I think economically it's the wrong argument, really.
Yeah,
You know, if you spend more money at this point to make more comedy shows, you will get that money back,
yeah,
because you will have one hit will be enough to make all that money back. And I think, I don't know, I might be wrong, because you know that's what happened in America in the 90s, and you know they had made loads and loads of shows, but actually, and they coincidentally they happened to have three massive
yeah.
or four massive shows, really: Seinfeld, Frasier, Friends, and The Simpsons, all hugely successful at the same
Mm.
time. And I think they never ever kind of recovered from that, really. You
No, yeah, because The Simpsons is never ending. That's never going to end. That I don't think The Simpsons
know.
live longer than you and me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and with pilots, I think they're a good place for you to see. Oh, here's how it did look, and then
Mm,
it was so successful, but there was bits that didn't work. That here's how it looks now. So with the Blackadder pilot that is available online in places, if you look deep enough, you can see where the elements of the pilot they took into series 1 and 2. So like
mm,
the pilot mixed series 1 and 2 together, and they learned that doesn't work, that doesn't work, but then that
mm.
does work, and so they made it into a series, and then thought we need to see if this bit works, and then we'll try another bit. And why do you think the pilot for Blackadder was so successful, in your opinion?
Again, I don't know. I mean, I just don't think people make enough pilots,
Mm,
and again, it's a cost thing. But I think pilots are, you just don't know. You really, and you know even less. I mean, part of the reason you make a pilot is because you so categorically don't know, and it is only in the making of the pilot, and after it has gone out almost, or when it's in the edit suite, you start to go,
yeah,
this is what it's about. Okay, right. Okay, if we get a series, this
yeah,
we know where we're going to. What this is what we'll do with the series.
yeah,
But you know, nowadays it's. I mean, you talk about pilots there. I know when I was trying to get something on ITV two a few years ago, I was told, no, we just don't make pilots now. So, you know,
yeah,
they uh, it goes through phases and things, I think. But
mm,
yeah, you never know why something is successful, and
yeah,
I mean, you sort of think, well, you can't go wrong. You've got in that Blackadder pilot, you've
yeah,
got uh, Rowan Atkinson, Richard Curtis,
mm,
John Lloyd. You've got three of the most already very, very successful television people in
yeah,
comedy. What could possibly go wrong? But invariably, other shows have come
yeah,
about. I mean, they tried Horrible Histories on BBC One, and what they did was they took away the rat and replaced it with Stephen Fry, and it just didn't work.
yeah,
They made two little episodes of it, and we were all full of excitement at
yeah,
the prospect of the show going to BBC One, and for some reason, well, they obviously thought, well, the rat is for kids, so
yeah,
we'll get rid of the rat. And Stephen Fry is funny voice, so he'll do it. And it just it didn't work. It was a mistake.
yeah,
But
because kids,
you don't know that. It was
yeah,
already a hugely successful TV show based on a
yeah,
hugely successful book franchise,
mm,
and they were about to replace a cartoon rat with a hugely successful Stephen Fry,
yeah.
and it didn't work.
And now going to your podcast now because
Mm.
it's an area of key talkability. Now, is will you ever release the podcast physically in any physical format,
How do you mean?
like CDs, vinyls, cassettes?
Oh, I see. That has never crossed our mind, really. I think podcasts are so. It feels like
Mm,
I mean, the British Comedy Guide is such a massive platform, and
yeah,
we sort of feel like we get as many listeners as people. There's actually amazingly, there is nothing. The only thing that's close to what we do has been going much longer than we have.
yeah,
Is a show called Script Notes in America with the screenwriters John August and Craig Mazin, and they've been going probably about 5 years longer than we have.
wow,
And they are the sort of mega superstars. James and I are kind of
niche,
mid table Premier League,
yeah,
maybe, or sort of struggling in the mid-table relegation areas of the Premier
yeah,
League. Craig and John are, they're they're Man City
yeah,
and Liverpool, really. But there is nothing around the world really. People how to write comedy.
mm,
There's nothing. So it's the only thing, and we just get, you know, I suppose we're on all the platforms that podcasts are on.
yeah,
I hadn't really thought of the idea of doing it. I
yeah.
mean, we might bring out some books of interviews and things. I don't know. We've thought about that
Yeah,
sometimes.
because a lot of the only podcast that I can think of off the top of my head that does it is No Such Thing the Fish. They've got their
Right?
available on vinyl,
Okay.
cassette, USB. I'm not sure about CD, but you can get it from Apple Music as well.
Mm,
And
yeah.
that type of thing, I think, what is successful in a way because then it's another way for people to listen to it. It's for people to own their favorite podcast in physical media, and it also gives you chance to earn a little bit money from the sales from these things. And the other thing is, would you ever make an official Sitcom Geeks, like its own website?
Um, that's interesting. Again, it hasn't sort of occurred to us, partly because James has his website and I have
Yeah.
mine, and the show, again, as I say, nothing that we would ever create would
Mm.
ever get the numbers of
Yeah.
views that British Comedy Guide gets.
Yeah.
So at this point, I would say no, but never say never.
Mm.
I think.
Yeah. And with the British Comedy Guide, do you get to see the analytics of how many more people listen to the podcast through the British Comedy Guide rather than through the other audio platforms?
We uh, the we don't get as many analytics. We don't get as much as we would like, but then that's also partly because we don't sort of have the time. We've never really kind of sat down and properly, we kind of work out roughly what we want to talk about, and
Yeah.
we think about people. Oh, let's try and interview this person, or I'll say, oh, let's talk about. I'll
Mm.
get this person. And
Now, coming towards the last couple of questions,
Mhm.
what's the difference writing for TV to writing for radio?
Um, yeah, that's. I mean, on a very simple level, that there shouldn't be a lot of difference because you're writing about character and stories.
Mm.
But the main thing, and I often get sitcom scripts for TV of lots of people talking, blah blah blah, blah. And people forget that television is a visual medium. So let's let me imagine what it's going to look like, and
Yeah.
have always be thinking about visual things
Yeah.
when you're writing for TV. You're always thinking of things going on in the background while you've got people talking. Um, you've got you need stuff to be going on as well,
Yeah.
and in fact you need that maybe to be part. If you've got a character who's got something that's a visual thing anyway, that's always a help. And so with radio, you can't see the people, you can't see the places, you
Mm.
can be anywhere. So use audio.
Yeah.
That's I've just written a pilot for radio, excuse me, a radio sitcom myself, and it's very much kind of using the medium
Mm.
of audio
Yeah.
to try and kind of for, for for character and story, and
Yeah.
just trying as much as possible to make it so that you wouldn't look at the script and go, oh, this person's just taken their TV script and turned it into a radio script.
Mm.
You'd look at it and say, oh, this is really made for radio. So those are the main things. But things like character and story
Yeah.
that are the perennials for sitcom, they're the same on radio and TV.
Yeah. Now, for anyone that's watching this that wants to be a writer and write a sitcom, what advice would you give them?
Um, well, obviously, watch lots and lots of sitcoms. Uh, get a feel for the rhythm, and come listen to Sitcom Geeks for advice how to write characters and stories. And contact James or I. We both run kind of different types of courses, really, for helping people write sitcoms, or you know and you can sign up to my fortnightly newsletter, where I have little discussions and things, as well as talking about my courses and stuff. But yeah, watch shows. What's your favorite type of show? What is it that you like when you watch a sitcom? What do you want to get across yourself? What's your what's driving you to write it?
Mm.
Really, I think that's the kind of
Yeah.
those sorts of things. But yeah,
Yeah.
get the rhythm, get into the rhythms.
Mm. And now, go into something that you regularly ask on the podcast. What are you currently watching?
Right. Well, as I say, we just finished watching the last series of Kaminsky Method, which is written by Chuck Lorre, who created The Big Bang Theory. It's a sitcom about two very old men played by Michael Douglas and Alan Arkin. And It's about Michael Douglas is a was a he's an actor who teaches acting, and he was always going to be a huge star, this character, but he never played by the rules, so he was never a successful
Yeah,
actor. But Alan Arkin was like a hugely successful agent, and they sort of become friends when they're older. And
yeah,
it's been my favorite show really the last kind of 2 or 3 years. And
yeah,
then so tonight for the first time watching the series 3 of Ghosts. So
mm,
that's looking forward to that.
yeah. And I'll give my answer to this because the viewers
Okay.
know. Interestingly, I'm rewatching Still Game on Netflix. I'm
Okay.
rewatching Friday Night Dinner for my Friday Night Dinner podcast. Lovely bit of squirrel. And I'm also started watching Last Man Standing on Disney Plus, which is the Tim Allen program that was on Fox that then Disney UK added to part of its Star collection, which is very good. And have you seen Last Man Standing?
I haven't. No, I'm a massive fan of Friday Night Dinner, so I'm interested that you do a whole podcast just devoted to that show alone.
Yeah, I review every episode from start till the
Hmm.
10th anniversary special.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
it's well, I would say it's worth a listen, but it depends on how long the viewers would listen to me wittering on for, because I witter on a lot. And now coming towards the end of the interview here, is there anything that you would like to promote?
Um. Yes. Okay. Right. Well, I've got a book called The Complete Comedy Writer, which I'm bringing out a new edition of that in January, and that's
Mm,
about how to write comedy. But if you want to, I wrote my first ever novel recently, and it's called Stand Up Barry Goldman.
yeah,
And I had to change my name slightly for the algorithms to David J. Cohen. So, Stand Up Barry Goldman. So it's a story about, it's kind of a little bit about the beginnings of alternative comedy.
yeah,
Um, so it's about a bloke from Leeds who uh, tries to become a comedian in the late 1970s. Um, it's a very, very fictionalized version of me. So, uh, but it was great fun. I really enjoyed writing it. And,
yeah,
um, I'm hopefully going to do another,
yeah.
the next one.
Yeah, where is that available to
It's
purchase?
available on Amazon, or you
Oh,
can go to if you go to any bookshop and ask for it, they'll get it for you.
mm,
But if you go to Amazon Books, Stand Up Barry Goldman, David J. Cohen, you
mm.
can find it there.
Will there ever be an audible version of the book?
Yes, in fact, we just finished recording it. Arthur Smith has recorded the book, and that'll be out in October and November, I think.
Well, stay tuned for that because that
Yeah.
sounds incredible.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's great. He's
Yeah.
brilliant. He's wonderful.
Mm. And when is the next episode of the Sitcom Geeks gonna be out?
Right. Well, we've got one out. That's our last episode was with the American writer John Vorhaus. The next episode goes out on the Thursday, the 26th of August, and I can't remember. I think we're talking about. I think it's just one with me and James, but we've recorded one recently with two comedy writers, uh, two teachers really. Well, Kay Stonham, who's a very good comedy writer, and she's also a teacher of writing, and a guy called Chris Head who's written a book about sitcom writing. So that's going to be either on the 26th of August or a fortnight later. So we've got some great stuff lined up in
Yeah.
the coming months, and yeah, do listen, Sitcom
Yeah.
Geeks.
You'll be able to listen to it anywhere where you get your podcasts from, or if you're watching this interview on the British Comedy Guide website, you all you have to do is press the search bar and then search Sitcom Geeks, and it should appear. If it doesn't, just have a look at the menu section. It'll probably be in the podcast section, because I completely forgot until I just mentioned it. Then there is a podcast section, so it's probably in there. But they are thinking. I have heard that they're doing a few updates to the website soon. So I will be reviewing the podcast, not the podcast. And we will be reviewing the website very shortly over on this channel, because new things are coming to the website. I have been told. And so hope you guys enjoyed this interview as much as I did. Thank you guys for watching. Time out. Bye.
Bye.